It's go time. It's 4 o'clock-ish on a Friday afternoon. You're all looking forward to the weekend, and I'm joined by one of our favorite guests, Mr. Christian the Viking Byfield. But this time, he's brought along a guest of his own, and that is none other than Adam from Propco. How are you doing?
I'm all right, David. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. All I've been told is that there's some exciting news afoot. Christian, fill in that blank for me.
Yeah, so we're very excited to announce today our first CRM integration with Propco, one of the leading CRMs in the system. Adam, I think I'm right in saying you guys account for something like nearly 17% of agent managed entities within the PRS through your system.
That's it. Our tech basically handles big portfolios, and we are very lucky to be heading towards that 20% of market transactions being handled. Transaction, we do everything, as you know, Christian. We go all the way from initial instruction, listing, rent agreements, contracting, transaction, property management, client accounting, and of course with you now enhanced end of tenancy experience and managing the data, big numbers, with £3 billion worth of transactions reconciled every year, down to the penny, huge amounts of automation, massive scale, really good stuff for the industry.
Yeah, and I think for us, every agent, I think every tech supplier that presents to an agent, if the agent doesn't open with the question, are you integrated into our CRM, it definitely comes somewhere between the start of the pitch and the end of the pitch. And I think like most tech businesses launching out there, obviously, we always had an aspiration and an intention to integrate into the CRM landscape, but it takes time. You have to mature the product and get proof of concept.
It does take time. Just because it's easy for people to say, yeah, we integrate and we talk about open AI, APs and all this sort of stuff, but what is the time scale really? I mean, a lot of development goes into this, doesn't it?
So the development, something like this. So yeah, I mean, integrations is a very broad term, depending on what a product does.
Right.
We touch quite a lot of data points in that sort of tenancy conclusion process. So, I mean, to put it in context, this has been about a 6-month project from us in terms of working out the spec and then working through that with Propco to establish something that was going to work, and then obviously building it, testing it, and deploying it. We deployed about 4 or 5 weeks ago. We deployed with a client, and obviously there's been a little bit of refining and fine tuning over that, little bit of fixes here and there, and etc. But yeah, I mean, we've built a very, very comprehensive system. So I mean, we really have as many interactions throughout the journey as we can. So I think the obvious one, I think when an agent talks to us and goes, are you integrated? I think primarily what they talk about with us is, are we capturing the landlord tenancy and property data? And yes, absolutely, that is what we are now capturing from Propco, but that is really just
it's table stakes, isn't it? I mean, when people talk about an integration, a CRM integration, from an agent perspective, that is, we already store this information that you say you need. Can't you just get it from our system where it's already in place? But that's really, from a technology point of view, that's table stakes. If you're not able to transact that basic information, then really you're not really doing anything together. Yeah, you can drop a button and say go to the other app, but that's not an integration. We all know it isn't. But the key is to do something more, right? The key is to actually enable more to happen and make it more transparent. You want people, your clients, we've got mutual clients as a result of an integration, and you want those clients to have a great experience. You want to improve their experience of managing the information, and also their customers' experience has got to be made better. And that's why you go deeper with an integration. But look, to set it in context, like TBL, Technology Blueprints, the company that makes Propco, we do integrations, we do software projects all the time. 6 months is a great timetable for an integration, bearing in mind this is the timetable from yes, let's do it, to yes, it's done. And as Christian said, 6 weeks out of that 6 months is spent making sure that what's actually live with the customer is really delivering value. And easily 6 to 8 weeks at the front was spent talking about what that might look like at the end. What made this one really work is, of course, with our system, we're ready with a very big API surface that we can use to integrate with others. So we've got APIs. Christian and the depository had APIs. So it was about making sure that what we're lining up is a great journey of the data to deliver a great experience.
It sounds easy when you say it like that. You've got a forward-thinking supplier like Christian, who clearly the goal will be to get to the stage where there's as many meaningful integrations as possible. And from your perspective, your clients can come along, know that they don't have to get involved in duplicate data entry and the mistakes. Let's face it, the mistakes that happen on that journey when you have to come in and out of two different systems, inevitably, it compromises the quality of the data sometimes.
It does, and you've got to have two things. I think with any good integration, and this I really have to say, like I'm here today, this is a decent integration that we've done. I think Christian's been interesting right from when we first met. We met at a PropTech event, the PropTech event with a queue that used to run. We met years ago, and he was sitting there with someone from TDS working out what this service would look like, working out what the value. The great thing about Christian is, because he comes from the industry, he really knows what the value proposition needs to be. He understands the problem that he wants to solve, and then has tried to build and has ultimately delivered the solution for that. But it's more than just dealing with the double keying, which is a massive burden, right? Nobody wants to put their business exposed to the risk, particularly with things like deposit return, that somebody's slip of a key could lead to a problem in that return. But getting the information moving between the systems is nice, and reducing double keying is nice. But you don't do an integration for a customer just to make it a little bit easier. You want to deliver something fresh, right, to the journey. And that's what we really liked about the depository and what Christian built. On Propco, you can already do end of tenancy, right? There's a way to get this done. But what Christian has surfaced was that way that beyond the relationship that might be formal that the agent is managing, people are still working on the depository platform, right? They've got a sense of where they are at in the deposit return process. He's giving something not just to the agent with an agent system that then we've integrated and plugged in, but actually to the agent's customers. And that, for me, is the thing that made it really interesting and exciting. This is about giving something to the people who are experiencing that end of tenant journey, the landlords and the tenants. They get something from this that they wouldn't otherwise have.
We always say that about for PropTech to truly sort of shine. It's great if it adds value for the agent, fantastic. But as you said earlier, that should be the basics of what you're looking for anyway.
Right.
But you want to take that one step further when it starts to deliver value for the end users, the people living in those homes, the people that are transacting, the landlords and the tenants. In Christian's case, that's where the beautiful magic happens.
That's what it's about as well, David, isn't it? I mean, it's at the end of the day, and that's what we like for us about working with Christian is we think that this technology space that we're in, with PropTech space, CRM agencies, we're all here to deliver service to people. We're doing it digitally. We're about transforming that, taking the opportunities that technology gives us digitally to make things better, right? To make those journeys better for people. And actually, if it's not going to make an improvement to people's lives, then why are we all doing it? I mean, you're not going to be able to monetize that, right? People aren't going to, fundamentally, agents want to deliver more value to their customers and generate more value for themselves by these technologies that they bring into their business. And if you're not actually giving people something better, then, why are you doing it, right?
Adam, where have you been all my life? We need this. We need more of this.
We do this all day. We do this all day, David. I'll come on any time. You got to meet the rest of the team, but because we're like, truth be told, we just sit around all day building the best technology that we can, right, for agents, and really thinking about improving on the experience. Like I said, we're lucky. We've got big numbers of people being impacted by change, and so by working with Christian, this is about saying, okay, that thing. I think you said it to me a couple of weeks ago, Christian. Right? We all know that deposit return is not the most glamorous thing that could happen in a property experience for anybody. But when it's not happy, when it's painful, like ask landlords and tenants, it's really painful, right? We all know that. So getting it right and improving that, literally its ability to touch and improve people's experience. And for agents, we're going to see, aren't we, Christian? We're going to see.
Yeah, and I think the exciting thing working with you guys, Adam, is you've highlighted what your system got, and also the client that we worked with on this project. I think we could have approached this from what's the bare minimum? What is the absolute minimum we could do? And like I said, we could have just done, look, just send us the pure text data of the key fields, property, landlord, and tenant, and that just removes that duplicated data entry, and then everything else can happen elsewhere. And that would have been quite easy to do. And let's just chalk it up. Let's just do something cheap and quick and move on. But I think very much the agent conversation and our attitude as well was, how far can we push this? So yes, we capture that data, but we also pull in all the key documents. So we capture check-in and inventory reports, we capture tenancy agreements, and it's a two-way integration. So the client that we built this primarily for initially uses an insured deposit scheme. And we are very good at capturing forwarding addresses, which is something agents typically struggle with. And also we gather all a tenant's bank details in a secure manner. So we actually now funnel all that information back into Propco. So that was fields that forwarding address is notoriously difficult for agents to collect. And we do that by collecting it with the bank details. So it helps us leverage that process. But yeah, we sit that all into Propco. Now, along with that, what we've also done with the client is there are certain points where, given a certain set of circumstances, something needs to happen that isn't process driven within Propco or our platform. And within Propco, agents can create bespoke workflows for certain work things. So within our integration, there are 5 different workflow triggers at key points that can trigger an agent to say, right, okay, we've got to this point. This will now trigger a workflow within Propco, prompting the relevant members of staff to complete those steps. And I think one of the most exciting things is actually the final step that we do. So we read within Propco, they have a tenant's deposit ledger on each individual tenant. We actually read that ledger. So when you use our platform manually, your accounts person has to tell our platform, I've now refunded that money to all the people. With the Propco integration, that doesn't need to happen anymore. All that person needs to do is tell Propco that they've made that payment. We read that ledger and we instantly auto-conclude that in our process, which updates the tenant, concludes the application in our process. But interestingly, that then triggers our TDS API that we have with them, which then tells TDS that breakdown, and it auto-concludes the deposit registration certificate. So our integration has removed something manual within our system, and it then triggers another API with our system into TDS. So, again, we're removing multiple steps and multiple workflows.
And you're removing that element of human error, if you like, that if somebody forgets to implement one of those stages, it could end up being a very costly mistake overall.
Exactly. And, removes effort on the Propco side. Actually, with the integration, removes effort on the depository side, and removes effort on the TDS side. So it's one of those great win-win-win triangles where everybody benefits. It adds something to all of the stakeholders involved, and it removes a lot of risk because, frankly, once the integration is plugged in properly and well thought through, and this is very, as Christian said, we put a lot of time and effort into making sure this was well thought through. The result is that information is just going to flow every day. That's what computers are great at, right? Not very good at coming up with good ideas, computers, but very, very good at doing what they're told, once you tell them what to do.
One of the key things we looked at with Propco is we didn't want to create an extra action within Propco to trigger something. So we didn't, that tenant deposit ledger, perfect example. We just read that, and when the balance goes to 0, we know it's been reconciled, rather than saying to Propco, right, guys, we now need you to put a button in Propco to say deposit return, which will call that API with us, because then you're creating another action. What we don't want to do is to create a new job for a member of staff. And so again, when we look at how we capture it, that is driven by just purely what an agent will always do in Propco, which is change the tenancy status. So when they give or receive notice, they will change the tenancy status like any agent in any CRM would to concluding or notice served, or whatever the terminology within that CRM is. But the agent will do that by default. That triggers the API import into our system. So the agent's not having to go, right, change status, and now click the export to depository button, they just change the status like they would anyway, and instantly that is sat in the system waiting for them to then push the process through in our platform. And one of the interesting things as well, being our first CRM and looking at this, and we were working with a large client to facilitate this as well, is you have to accept that the completeness of data does vary a little bit on records. So some will have everything there, every report, document, detail, bang on there. Some don't. Maybe they've acquired a business that, for whatever reason, the documents aren't there, whatever. So actually, through this journey, what we realized is actually we've had to create a new stage in our platform. So when any clients who sign up with our PropCo integration going forward, our dashboard will now have a new imported status stage. So what will happen is anything that we import, regardless of the completeness of data, will sit in that imported status. And then all they will do is go in to start process, and our sort of little onboarding wizard will basically go, we're missing these 3 things. We're missing a landlord telephone number, this tenant's email, and we don't have the tenancy agreement. And so
it's auditing and reconciling the two ends of that.
Yeah, but again, it's looking at
it's actually filling the gaps, David. So and this is one of the things I think is really interesting about what we've done together here is, and it's true the prop tech space. I mean, Christian and I, as I said, we met as prop tech scene, and I guess as TBL, PropCo has been in development for 25 years. And I say in development because we're still releasing new updates all the time, where it's constantly expanding, because that's what we're passionate about. But what's different in the prop tech scene is very often they have not had the opportunity to address exactly what Christian's talking about, which is the challenges of scale, or really the different way to think about it, those real world scenarios that have actually taken place in agencies that have been running for years, right? Things happen in agency. You acquire another business, you take their folder. They don't have all the documents in their folder that you have in your folder, or their form is different, or somebody's signature isn't at the bottom of something because, we don't need his signature because that landlord never signs anything, but we're cool with that. All of those things that happen in agency in the real world, and then are enfranchised on a CRM system that's been running for a long time in a client, a prop tech builds a solution to kind of deal with an ideal situation often, because it's a small startup and it's got that startup mindset. Once they start to look at playing with real agency, like the real life, they get into real world, they run into these difficult scenarios, and you have to have that agile mindset, which Christian and the Depositary really have. I mean, look at Christian's actual property management business in East London, if you don't mind me mentioning, Christian. Very, very agile, always has been, always thinking about new. And so coming in there and going, so here's a problem that we're seeing that we never really thought would exist, that we're finding because we're dealing with real world scenarios. Let's get a solution to that enhances the service. I mean, it's just great.
It is fascinating, and I know that we're going to deep dive into this in a couple of weeks' time when you guys have managed to do a bit more work on it. But when is this going to be ready to sort of roll out? Are you ready to pump this out today, or are you still sort of at beta?
So this is live and running. This is up and running and live now. Like I said, we deployed it about 5 weeks ago. That is working in good order. As Adam said, we never stop working, so we're constantly refining little elements of it, looking at little bits and pieces. The intricacies of a large-scale PropCo, large-scale CRM like PropCo is, there are intricacies with all the different little labels that sit within particular properties and tenancies and everything like that. But we have it up and running. It is being used by a large-scale agent, and the feedback is generally, phenomenal. They're loving how it's working. And like I said, we're just looking at refining a couple of things. They've actually asked us to add a couple of extra features to that, bespoke to their needs. And again, I think in line with what Adam was saying, I'm always keen to try and look at what the best standard is and what is the best product we can build and the best solution. So, we're always very happy to listen to client feedback is critical to us, and understanding that and understanding how we eliminate these little ones that fall through the cracks.
It helps you to refine that offering so that it's seamless and perfect for the other people ahead. Superb work. It's lovely because for years we moan. Christian will tell you this. It's the biggest moan of estate agents that yes, things don't integrate. But I often sometimes think that suppliers will come out with innovations that don't necessarily benefit the agent or make their life any easier. And sometimes it's the simplest of things that make life easier for the agent.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's very much your approach. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're not trying to force your respective softwares to do anything different to what it would normally do, but it's getting it to sort of marry
That's
up.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to think. I mean, this is the heart of our philosophy at Technology Blueprint is, you know, and frankly, it comes from having spent years and years servicing the industry, right? This is about making the people better at doing what they do, right? Every time you do something with the technology that says, okay, in order to accomplish your goal, we just need you to click this, to turn that page, to open this tab, to close that, to type in something over here, you're not doing it right. And a good integration, and what everybody, I suppose, in the audience and just everybody I talk to should always think of is a good integration. You know, yes, it can take time. Yes, it can take effort. It takes will, frankly. It takes that real desire from all of the key stakeholders, the client base, the software providers, to actually put in the effort and make the investment to make it work. But your objective should be nobody has to change what they do except for the people that you're specifically adding real value to. So in this world with the integration, the agency staff don't have to make a change to what they do. But what they see is some of the things that they used to have to ask a colleague to give them, that's appearing automatically on the system because it's been passed back from the depository to Propco once they've taken their usual action. And for the clients, for the landlords and the tenants, they're getting this whole new way to understand exactly what's going on with their deposit return and to actually see the results happening in real time in a kind of accessible way. So they get the value add without impacting upon the agent burden, except for to say less of the drudge work, right? So more of the value add. And that's what it's about, right? That's what technology is that's what good tech does, fundamentally.
Superb. It sounds like you two have got a very healthy marriage going on there.
Well,
This is
you know,
the start of big things.
it's early days. We'll see what the kids look like.
That is always the key. Let's hope they're all good looking and have a sense of humor.
I'm going to keep Adam happy. I'm gonna order him a very special candle snuffer.
Oh no, let's go back to that.
We did have a very in-depth conversation off camera about that, but we're not going to.
We're not going to do
all these people on a Friday afternoon. Congratulations, guys! It's great to sort of hear about this sort of innovation. We look forward to welcoming you both back to talk about it in more detail. And to everybody else, have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, Minty, thanks for having us. And guys, if you are obviously a Propco client and you want to know more, reach out to either Adam or ourselves, and we're very excited to show you guys what we've built.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, thanks a lot. And thanks David. Thanks, Christian. Cheers.